How can you trust what you see, what you think, what you remember? Imagine waking up in a world where every certainty you held is suddenly cast into shadow, where even the ground beneath your feet could vanish the moment you close your eyes. This is the world René Descartes inhabited, a Europe roiling with wars, religious isms, and revolutionary scientific ideas. It was a time when knowledge itself felt uncertain, and the foundations of truth were shaking. Descartes, a solitary man wandering the quiet streets of Paris, confronted this chaos, not with a sword or a political alliance, but with a question. Can any knowledge be trusted if our senses, our minds, even our memories, are susceptible to error? From the outset, Descartes understood that humans inherit a lifetime of assumptions. We accept what others tell us, what tradition insists is true, and what our senses present as reality. Yet, if our senses deceive us, if our reason is clouded by prejudice or habit, then what remains? This tension between inherited knowledge and personal certainty became the crucible in which his philosophy was forged. He knew that to discover truth, one must first confront doubt, not a fleeting skepticism, but a radical, systematic questioning of everything, including the self. Imagine the loneliness of such a path. To doubt everything is to walk through a labyrinth with no exit in sight. Every belief, every memory, every perception becomes suspect. Descartes wandered this maze, not aimlessly, but deliberately, testing each assumption against a measure of reason. He asked himself, could he trust the evidence of his eyes when they had been fooled by illusions countless times before? Could he trust the sound of a voice, the warmth of sunlight, or the solidity of a chair, if these might all be tricks played upon the mind? This radical doubt is not mere nihilism. It is a methodical stripping away of all that is uncertain, leaving only what cannot possibly be denied. In a world where entire civilizations fought over unverifiable truths, where political and religious authorities claimed monopoly over reality, Descartes' approach was revolutionary. He proposed that certainty could not come from tradition, from fear, or from appearances. It must come from a place immune to deception, a place within the self where doubt itself becomes the tool of clarity. Even the act of doubting, he realized, proved something essential. If he could doubt, then he must exist in some form to doubt. This insight, the famous, I think, therefore I am, emerges from the shadows of uncertainty. Yet at this stage, it is only a glimmer. The world beyond remains a puzzle. Can knowledge exist without doubt? Can humans ever pierce the veil of illusion? Or are we forever prisoners of perception? These questions are not relics of history. They resonate with modern anxieties, in a world flooded with misinformation, manipulated images, and virtual realities designed to deceive. Every click, every curated narrative, every artificial image challenges our confidence in what we perceive. Cognitive biases twist our interpretation of events, shaping belief without awareness. Just as Descartes scrutinized the reliability of his senses, today we must ask whether the world presented to us is authentic, or merely a mirror reflecting what we wish to see. Standing at the edge of doubt is a profound experience. It is disorienting, almost terrifying. To question everything is to feel the ground vanish beneath your intellectual feet. Yet it is here, in this tension, that curiosity awakens. Descartes invites us into this space, where certainty is elusive, but the search for truth begins. The mind, once liberated from unquestioned assumptions, becomes capable of extraordinary insight. Each doubt is a lantern illuminating the shadows, revealing the contours of reality we might otherwise overlook. In this first step, Descartes shows us the raw power of introspection. To question is not merely to be suspicious, but to confront the limitations of human perception, to examine the architecture of the mind itself. It is the first movement of an intellectual awakening, a challenge to look beyond appearances and confront the unsettling possibility that what we know may be, at its core, uncertain. By immersing ourselves in this philosophical suspense, we experience the same psychological intensity that Descartes felt. Every thought becomes an adventure, every assumption a potential trap. To live with doubt is to awaken fully to the fragile, deceptive, yet astonishingly capable mind we inhabit. And in this awakening, we begin to glimpse the profound insight that knowledge is not a gift handed down by tradition or authority. It is forged within the crucible of rigorous questioning, where curiosity is the only compass and doubt the necessary guide. In a world teetering between dogma and revolution, René Descartes embarked on a journey that would forever change how humans approach knowledge. He understood that to find certainty, one could not rely on tradition, on authority, or on the fleeting trustworthiness of the senses. Instead, he proposed a radical path, a disciplined method of doubt, a systematic stripping away of all assumptions, leaving only truths that could not be denied. This was not mere skepticism. It was a weapon forged from reason, honed to cut through illusion and deception, a method designed to illuminate the foundations of reality. Descartes' mind became a battlefield. Each belief he had absorbed from childhood, each principle taught by church or university, each comforting assumption, he subjected to relentless scrutiny. Could the senses be trusted when they had so often deceived him? Could memories, molded by emotion and habit, serve as a reliable guide? Could the very reasoning he relied upon be flawed, manipulated by unseen biases or errors? In his solitude, these questions collided, forming the crucible of his intellectual revolution. Doubt, he realized, was not weakness. It was the sharpest instrument for discovering truth. From this rigor emerged a single, undeniable insight. If he could doubt, then he must exist to perform that doubt. He thought, therefore he was. Cogito, ergo sum. A phrase so simple, yet so profound that it became both shield and compass in the chaos of uncertainty. The declaration was not merely philosophical. It was a psychological lifeline. It anchored the self in the storm of skepticism, providing a foothold from which all further inquiry could proceed. In that moment, Descartes transformed doubt from a source of despair into a disciplined strategy for understanding the world. The implications of this method are as profound psychologically as they are philosophically. Humans crave certainty. Our minds are structured to prefer coherence, to seek comfort in narratives that align with existing beliefs. Cognitive dissonance, the tension that arises when reality contradicts expectation, feels threatening, even dangerous. Descartes recognized this instinctual discomfort, yet he embraced it. He understood that true understanding requires confronting the unease of uncertainty. Doubt, though initially destabilizing, is liberating. It challenges mental complacency, forcing the mind to examine its foundations, and it awakens the capacity for critical thought that lies dormant in most lives. Historically, his method emerged at a time of extraordinary upheaval. The scientific revolution was challenging centuries of religious authority and scholastic orthodoxy. The Copernican model of the cosmos, Newtonian mechanics, and early experiments in chemistry were dismantling the framework of inherited knowledge. Descartes' approach reflected this broader shift. Just as empirical science questioned accepted truths, so too must the mind examine its own assumptions. Doubt became both a personal tool and a reflection of societal transformation, illustrating the intimate connection between philosophy, psychology, and the forces shaping history. Descartes' methodology was elegant in its simplicity, yet profound in its application. He proposed starting with clear, distinct ideas, principles so self-evident that they could withstand the harshest scrutiny. From these foundations, knowledge could be built logically, step by step, like constructing a fortress of reason. Each assumption dismantled, each illusion discarded, brought the mind closer to certainty. Doubt was no longer paralyzing. It became constructive, a disciplined strategy for uncovering what was real and undeniable. Psychologically, this process mirrors the modern struggle to navigate a world awash in information and misinformation. We are constantly bombarded by competing narratives, by persuasive voices claiming authority over reality. Descartes teaches that before accepting any claim, before trusting appearances, we must first examine the structure of our own minds. Doubt is not defeat, it is preparation. It trains the intellect to differentiate between what is imposed upon us and what is genuinely understood, to recognize deception, and to resist the seductive comfort of unquestioned belief. Ultimately, Descartes' method transforms the individual. The mind becomes a vigilant investigator, capable of navigating both internal and external uncertainty. Doubt, rather than a source of despair, is a form of empowerment. It provides a disciplined lens through which the chaos of the world can be perceived with clarity, allowing reason to flourish where ignorance once prevailed. In this sense, thinking itself becomes a weapon, one wielded not against others, but against the illusions and deceptions that cloud human understanding. The genius of Descartes lies not only in the insight that knowledge must begin with doubt, but in the recognition that doubt requires courage. To question deeply is to confront discomfort, to challenge habit, and to resist authority. It is to embrace the tension between what is known and what is uncertain, between fear and discovery. In this tension, the human mind attains its most profound clarity, and the individual becomes capable of perceiving reality in a way that is both disciplined and expansive. Through the method of doubt, Descartes shows us that knowledge is never passively received. It must be actively pursued. Each assumption discarded, each belief interrogated, strengthens the foundation of understanding. Doubt is not chaos. It is a forge, tempering the intellect against error, illuminating the contours of truth hidden beneath layers of deception. And in the careful application of this method, the mind discovers a freedom unparalleled in human experience, a freedom to think, to question, and ultimately to know. The mind is a paradox, capable of extraordinary insight and, at the same time, remarkably fragile. Descartes, in his meticulous quest for certainty, uncovered the mind's dual nature. It is both a guide and a trickster, capable of illuminating truth while simultaneously ensnaring us in illusion. Every thought we hold, every belief we cling to, is filtered through a lens shaped by perception, emotion, and habit. These filters, invisible yet powerful, make the mind susceptible to error, deception, and self-delusion. Descartes understood that the first step toward knowledge is to recognize this fragility. Illusions are not just curiosities, they are windows into the limits of human perception. The simplest sensory trick, a mirage on a hot road, a reflection in a still pond, reveals how easily our senses can betray us. Extend this to memory, and the mind becomes even more treacherous. Memories are not perfect recordings. They are reconstructed narratives, subtly reshaped each time we recall them. The mind edits, embellishes, and occasionally fabricates, producing a version of reality that feels coherent, but is not always accurate. Emotions further complicate perception, coloring experiences with fear, desire, or prejudice. What we see is never entirely objective. It is a story told by a mind that is as fallible as it is brilliant. Descartes' method, born from radical doubt, anticipated this understanding centuries before neuroscience began to map the mechanics of cognition. By questioning everything, senses, memories, assumptions, the thinker learns to navigate the maze of perception. Each doubt acts as a compass, revealing the hidden traps in our reasoning, showing how easily the mind can be misled by appearances. In this sense, introspection becomes a form of defense. The disciplined mind, trained to question, begins to perceive the subtle ways in which society, authority, and even culture shape belief. It sees the invisible strings that tug at our thoughts, guiding decisions without conscious awareness. History provides abundant examples of the mind's vulnerability. Entire populations have been swayed by propaganda, manipulated through rhetoric, or blinded by ideology. Descartes' skepticism resonates here. Knowledge is not passively received. It is interrogated, tested, and confirmed through reason. The mind that fails to question becomes a puppet, while the mind that embraces doubt becomes empowered, capable of discerning manipulation and resisting deception. This is not merely intellectual exercise. It is a survival skill in a world where information, real or fabricated, constantly battles for dominance. Modern psychology and neuroscience offer a mirror to Descartes' insights. Cognitive biases, confirmation bias, the tendency to favor information that aligns with pre-existing beliefs, or the availability heuristic, where recent experiences shape judgment, illustrate the mind's systematic vulnerabilities. Emotions act as accelerants, intensifying these biases and shaping perception in ways often imperceptible to the individual. Social structures, cultural narratives, and persuasive messaging exploit these weaknesses, creating a world where humans are not fully in control of their beliefs. Yet within this fragility lies potential. Awareness of these mental traps transforms susceptibility into resilience. Understanding the mechanics of thought allows the individual to anticipate, counteract, and even harness these cognitive tendencies. The mind is, in essence, a maze where perception is both guide and trickster. Every corner hides a potential illusion. Every familiar path may lead to error. But the disciplined mind, informed by doubt and critical reasoning, navigates this labyrinth with increasing skill. Descartes' philosophical rigor was an early map of this terrain, a guide for turning vulnerability into strength. By examining the structure of thought itself, humans gain a vantage point from which to observe the interplay between perception, belief, and reality. This process cultivates intellectual autonomy, the ability to think independently amid the noise and manipulation of external influences. The stakes are profound. In a society inundated with information, where media, algorithms, and social pressures shape perception, the unexamined mind is prey. Misconceptions spread like wildfire, and collective errors can become institutionalized. Yet Descartes' approach offers a remedy. Disciplined doubt, introspection, and skepticism are the tools by which the mind protects itself, discerning what is reliable from what is illusion. Each moment of reflection, each question posed to one's own assumptions, strengthens the mental architecture, creating a fortress against deception. Power lies not in information alone, but in the ability to interpret it. Descartes' insights reveal that the mind's fragility is inseparable from its power. To acknowledge vulnerability is not to surrender, it is to awaken potential. The human mind can mislead, distort, and deceive, but it can also reason, discover, and create. By embracing the tension between fallibility and capability, the thinker gains mastery over perception, transforming doubt into clarity and uncertainty into insight. In the end, the mind's deception is inseparable from its brilliance. Recognizing fragility is the first step toward empowerment. To navigate life effectively, one must treat perception as provisional, memory as interpretive, and emotion as influential but not determinative. By cultivating self-awareness and critical reasoning, the individual steps into a space of intellectual freedom, where reality is interrogated, assumptions are challenged, and the mind begins to operate not as a passive observer, but as an active participant in shaping understanding. Descartes' legacy lies not in answers, but in the process. He illuminates the delicate balance between the mind's vulnerability and its extraordinary potential. In acknowledging the deceptive nature of perception, he equips us with the tools to think clearly, act deliberately, and pursue truth with both caution and courage. The mind, fragile yet powerful, deceptive yet capable, becomes not a prison, but a vehicle for exploration, introspection, and liberation. In our era, knowledge itself has become a battlefield. Information flows ceaselessly from every corner: news outlets, social media, streaming platforms, and personalized feeds, all competing to shape what we think is real. Yet beneath the surface of convenience lies a troubling question. How much of what we believe is constructed, manipulated, or outright false? The modern world mirrors the uncertainty that Descartes faced centuries ago, but the stakes are exponentially higher. Today, illusions are amplified by technology, reinforced by algorithms designed to manipulate attention, emotion, and belief. The individual mind, no matter how disciplined, must navigate this complex web or risk being swept along by forces it does not control. Descartes' method of doubt offers a surprisingly timely strategy. By systematically questioning assumptions, evaluating evidence, and refusing to accept appearances at face value, one can resist manipulation. The principle is deceptively simple. Do not take anything for granted, even if it aligns with popular opinion or feels comfortable. In practice, this means scrutinizing news, testing narratives against facts, and examining one's own biases before forming judgments. It is a deliberate form of intellectual vigilance, where doubt is a tool, not a source of paralysis. This disciplined skepticism allows the mind to sift truth from deception, transforming the chaos of information into actionable understanding. Consider social media, where curated content creates a filtered reality. Images, videos, and headlines are optimized for engagement, not accuracy. Algorithms reinforce confirmation bias, showing what the mind already expects to see. Each swipe, each like, subtly nudges perception, shaping beliefs without conscious awareness. Political propaganda, marketing campaigns, and even seemingly trivial cultural messaging operate under the same principles. They exploit cognitive shortcuts, emotional triggers, and the human desire for coherence, bending perception toward predetermined outcomes. The danger is that the unexamined mind can be easily steered, forming convictions that feel absolute but rest on fragile foundations. In this environment, doubt becomes an act of courage. To question authority, challenge consensus, and interrogate one's own assumptions is to swim against the current of conformity. Yet this resistance is essential. Cognitive traps, from groupthink to misinformation, thrive in the absence of critical reflection. Descartes' insight that certainty arises only through methodical examination remains profoundly relevant. By embracing doubt as a disciplined practice, individuals gain the capacity to resist manipulation, perceive hidden agendas, and navigate the modern landscape with clarity. Psychologically, the tension is acute. Humans are wired to seek security, to find comfort in agreement and familiar narratives. Confronting uncertainty triggers discomfort, sometimes fear. It is far easier to accept simplified explanations or ideological binaries than to wrestle with ambiguity. Yet avoiding doubt comes at a cost. Intellectual passivity, susceptibility to deception, and the erosion of autonomy. Descartes' lesson is that confronting this discomfort is not weakness, but strength. By tolerating the unease of uncertainty, the mind cultivates resilience, sharpens discernment, and gains access to truths that would otherwise remain obscured. The stakes of unexamined belief extend beyond the individual. Societies can be manipulated en masse when doubt is discouraged and conformity enforced. History is rife with examples. Propaganda campaigns, orchestrated misinformation, and ideological pressure have swayed populations, sometimes with devastating consequences. Today, the mechanisms are subtler but no less potent. Every headline, every trending topic, every viral post carries the potential to shape thought, influence decisions, and normalize assumptions without scrutiny. Knowledge, once taken for granted, is now a contested terrain, and the vigilant mind must act as both detective and guardian. Technology complicates this further. Deepfakes, synthetic media, and algorithmically generated content blur the line between reality and fabrication. The mind, already prone to bias and emotional influence, can be misled with unprecedented precision. In such a world, uncritical acceptance of appearances is dangerous. Doubt, however, functions as a shield. By systematically questioning sources, verifying claims, and reflecting on the mechanisms of influence, the individual can navigate a digital landscape fraught with deception. The act of doubt transforms the passive consumer of information into an active participant in truth-seeking, capable of distinguishing signal from noise. Disciplined skepticism also fosters autonomy. To doubt is to assert control over one's cognition, to refuse to surrender judgment to external pressures, and to reclaim intellectual agency. This is not nihilism or cynicism. It is an assertion that understanding requires effort, vigilance, and courage. The mind that embraces doubt becomes a laboratory of thought, testing ideas, challenging assumptions, and refining perception. In this sense, Descartes' method is a blueprint for surviving and thriving in a world where appearances are increasingly unreliable and manipulation is ubiquitous. Ultimately, the modern challenge mirrors the ancient one. Descartes confronted uncertainty with reason, insight, and courage. We confront it with an even more complex network of influence, where information is weaponized, perception is commodified, and conformity is incentivized. Yet the principle remains the same. Doubt is a tool, a lens, and a form of empowerment. It allows the mind to discern reality, resist manipulation, and act with intentionality. It transforms intellectual vulnerability into strength, uncertainty into understanding, and the chaos of the modern world into a landscape navigable by reason. By embracing doubt, we reclaim a measure of autonomy that society, technology, and culture continually test. Each question asked, each assumption challenged, is a step toward intellectual freedom. The stakes could not be higher. In a world where knowledge is under siege, the disciplined mind becomes both a sanctuary and a weapon. Descartes' legacy is a reminder that clarity is never given. It is earned, forged through courage, reflection, and the willingness to confront the uncertainty that lies at the heart of human existence. Doubt is often feared, dismissed as a weakness or a source of confusion, yet René Descartes revealed it as the foundation of freedom. In questioning the world, in testing the reliability of the senses, in interrogating assumptions long taken for granted, he transformed uncertainty into a powerful instrument of liberation. The mind, once enslaved by unexamined beliefs, discovers its capacity for clarity, reasoning, and reflection. Descartes' insight endures because it reminds us that intellectual autonomy is forged, not inherited. Knowledge begins with doubt, but it is courage that turns doubt into wisdom. The journey of doubt is personal, yet its implications are universal. Each individual, confronted with the complexity of modern life, must navigate a torrent of information, ideology, and manipulation. Social structures, political forces, and technological systems constantly shape perception, often invisibly. Without critical reflection, the mind is guided by external pressures rather than reason. Descartes' philosophy offers a method to question, to analyze, to resist the seduction of certainty imposed by others. Doubt is not surrender. It is a conscious reclaiming of agency, a refusal to accept reality unexamined. Historically, this approach has profound resonance. Descartes lived in an era where science, religion, and philosophy collided in violent, transformative ways. The certainty of tradition was challenged by observation, experimentation, and logic. To think freely in such a context required courage, discipline, and relentless introspection. Today, we face a similar challenge, albeit amplified. Our world is inundated with competing narratives, algorithmically curated truths, and engineered perceptions. The risk of intellectual complacency is ever present. In this landscape, the legacy of doubt is both protective and empowering. It allows the mind to navigate complexity without succumbing to deception, to confront uncertainty without despair. Psychologically, embracing doubt reshapes the way we engage with knowledge and experience. It teaches resilience, flexibility, and humility. When we recognize the fallibility of our perceptions, we become less vulnerable to manipulation and more capable of discerning hidden patterns, agendas, and distortions. Doubt is the lens through which the mind examines not only the external world, but the internal architecture of thought itself. It is a disciplined self-awareness, a form of intellectual vigilance that transforms vulnerability into insight and confusion into comprehension. In modern society, the stakes are as high as ever. Information is weaponized. Narratives are crafted to sway belief, provoke emotion, and enforce conformity. Knowledge, if unexamined, becomes a tool of control rather than empowerment. Here, Descartes' method is essential. By cultivating critical thinking, questioning sources, and examining one's own assumptions, the individual safeguards autonomy and clarity. Doubt, in this context, becomes a form of courage, a refusal to be passive in a world determined to shape thought. It is the antidote to intellectual manipulation, the key to independent reasoning in an environment where certainty is often fabricated. The legacy of doubt extends beyond survival. It cultivates freedom. Freedom of thought is the rarest form of liberty because it requires constant vigilance, reflection, and the willingness to confront discomfort, to question authority, challenge conventional wisdom, and interrogate one's own convictions is to exercise that freedom daily. It is not an abstract philosophical ideal. It is a practical necessity for living consciously, ethically, and intelligently in a world rife with distraction and deception. Descartes' philosophy reminds us that liberation begins internally. The mind, trained to doubt, gains mastery over its own perceptions and judgments, enabling autonomous action and informed understanding. In the synthesis of history, psychology, and modern relevance, Descartes' lesson is clear. Doubt is a tool, courage is its engine, and wisdom is its outcome. To confront uncertainty bravely is to claim authority over one's own cognition, to navigate the currents of misinformation, and to see the world with eyes unclouded by habit or ideology. Knowledge is never a passive inheritance. It is a discipline, a process, a vigilant act of engagement. Each question posed, each assumption tested, is a step toward intellectual sovereignty. Ultimately, the true power of doubt is its transformative quality. It does not merely unsettle, it liberates. It does not paralyze, it empowers. In embracing uncertainty, The thinker discovers the capacity to act with discernment, to reason with precision, and to perceive the hidden structures shaping reality. The mind is both fragile and formidable, vulnerable and resilient. Through doubt, it attains clarity, autonomy, and a profound sense of agency. Descartes' enduring legacy lies not in the answers he provided, but in the method he exemplified. He teaches that questioning is not rebellion for its own sake, but a disciplined path to freedom. He shows that intellectual courage is cultivated through introspection and reflection, that knowledge requires both skepticism and reason. In a chaotic world, where certainty is often manufactured and perception manipulated, the individual who embraces doubt stands not in fear, but in mastery. The act of questioning becomes a declaration of independence, a commitment to seeing clearly, and a pledge to think freely. As we confront the complexities of our own era, the message resonates with haunting clarity. Knowledge begins with doubt, but only courage transforms that doubt into wisdom. To doubt is to awaken. To act on doubt is to be liberated. The mind, once trained in disciplined skepticism, becomes a beacon in a turbulent world, capable of navigating deception, resisting manipulation, and embracing truth. Descartes' philosophy is more than historical thought. It is an invitation, a challenge, and a call to intellectual courage. To engage with the world critically, to question relentlessly, and to confront uncertainty bravely is to inherit the true legacy of doubt, freedom of thought, and the power to know.